أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قاتلوا الذين لا يؤمنون بالله ولا باليوم الآخر ولا يحرمون ما حرم الله ورسوله ولا يدينون دين الحق من الذين أوتوا الكتاب حتى يعطوا الجزية عن يد وهم صاغرون صدق الله العظيم. Previously, the command regarding jihad against the mushrikun, the polytheists, that was discussed. Beyond that, the idea of i'la kalimatillah, and the situation may be such that jihad will also be against other groups of non-Muslims. And where and when, which is a lengthy discussion, that where and when and how jihad becomes obligatory, etc. But in the case where and when it does become obligatory, and it's a fard kifaya, then this verse of Surah At-Tawbah also obligates jihad with the الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ, the Ahlul Kitab, namely the Jews and Christians as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse of Surah At-Tawbah, verse 29 of Surah At-Tawbah, commands the Muslim community that qatilu, the obligation of jihad is also against الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَلَا بِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, those who do not believe in Allah and the last day. Now those that will be described later is الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ, the Ahlul Kitab. So the natural question is that the Ahlul Kitab, they do believe in Allah. It's not that they don't believe in Allah, they do believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what does this mean? الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ, that they don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, couple meanings the ulama of Tafseer give. One is that they don't believe as they ought to have believed. As you ought to have believed would be what? That now that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent Rasuluna sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and in your Torah and Injil, which was revealed to the Ahlul Kitab, this is very clearly mentioned, etc. Then true belief in Iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would dictate that you should also believe in the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who was sent now. That's one. Second is, as it's described in the ayat that's coming later, وَقَاتِ الْيَهُودُ عُزَيْرٌ ibn Allah وَقَاتِ النَّصَارَى الْمَسِيحُ ibn Allah, that in their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or at least amongst some of them, there was this adulteration of the Tawheed by bringing an element of shirk into it. So for the Christians, very clear with their aqidah of tathlith or Trinity, bringing that into the picture of regarding Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. So although they are, in their claim they are monotheists, but in practicality and logically when you look at it, there is obviously a problem in the tawheed over there. As far as the Yahud are concerned, then the first explanation that also applies, that after Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and because it's mentioned in the Torah, the descriptions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the Quran Kareem says, يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاهُمْ, that they recognize him as they would recognize their own children. Then that's one. The second being that a group of them, they considered Uzair to be the son of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Uzair being a Nabi or not is a discussion, whether he is a Nabi or whether he is not. But in any case, they considered Uzair to be the son of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So قَاتِلُوا الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ, the first description, and this becomes what we call illatul jihad over here, or the reason for why there will be jihad against them. The one, they don't have iman in Allah as they ought to have. Second, bil-yawm al-akhir, iman in al-yawm al-akhir, the last day. Again, same question, that they do believe in a qiyamah, a hereafter, in a paradise, in a hell. So what does it mean that they don't believe in this? One explanation again, that they don't believe in it as they ought to have believed in it. True belief in Yawm al-Akhir would dictate what? That you act accordingly. Right? If you know that you are going to have a day of recompense in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you'll be judged for your a'mal and your actions, then where are your actions that show that this is your iman and this is your belief? That's one. Second, again, some of them had kind of adulterated the idea of ba'ath and the resurrection. That some of them had this aqidah and this belief that there won't be a resurrection of the body, but it will just be souls. And the idea, and Jannah and Jahannam are more kind of feelings rather than actual places. Some of them, some denominations amongst them, had this aqidah that Jannah is not an actual place. Jahannam is not an actual place. But the good feeling a spirit, the spirit, the ruh will have, that will be called, this blissful feeling will be called Jannah, and this blissful feeling will be called Jannah, which is completely against Nusus Sarihah, clear text of Quran and Sunnah, and also what was mentioned in the previous kutub as well. That's two reasons so far. لا يؤمنون بالله ولا باليوم الآخر. Third one, ولا يحرمون ما حرم الله ورسوله. That they do not consider prohibited what Allah and His Rasul consider to be prohibited. So many things which were, so either in their own deen, in the Sharia of Musa alayhi salam, for example, if something was made haram, they didn't consider or they didn't act upon it, or they would try to make it halal in one way or the other. Many incidents of this nature. Same thing with the Nasara, the Christians. Many things which were not considered to be permissible, they made it permissible for themselves. Or وَرَسُولُهُ, referring to Nabiyuna sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that this deen that has been brought from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and what's now been considered haram. And what if something was permissible before and that was abrogated, then they ought to have iman in that as well, so they don't have this aqidah as well. وَلَا يَدِينُونَ دِينَ الْحَقِّ, and they do not profess the religion of truth. The haqq is the description of the deen, the true deen. That's one. The other is deen al-haqq, deen of Allah. Al-haqq, we have it over here. One of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-haqq. If you look around you sometimes, see what's in the masjid. وَلَا يَدِينُ الدِّينَ الْحَقِّ, the deen of al-haqq, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The deen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent, and which is not abrogated, and which is to be practiced upon, they don't have iman upon that. مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حَتَّى يُعْطُوا الْجِزْيَةَ. Any command of jihad where it is given, the first step is da'wah ila kalimat la ilaha illallah. The first step is calling towards kalimat la ilaha illallah. Clear in the hidayat of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to his generals, the Sahaba anhum, that when you come upon a people, then give da'wah towards la ilaha illallah. Let them understand, explain to them what it is, if they are open to that. If not, then the second step would be calling towards jizya, that you accept the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you pay the jizya, tax to the Muslim governance. Muslims in the Darul Islam will give their zakah, and the non-Muslims will give their jizya. If you see the books of fiqh, the jizya is far, not even a comparison between how much taxes you and I give in this country. Everyone, the Muslim or non-Muslim, it's not even a comparison. The amount of jizya that is given in a Darul Islam. Tax for the sake of tax is against the policy of a Darul Islam. Just because someone is earning something that you tax them. Necessarily, that's a separate issue. But the adl and justice of Islam cannot be even compared to how tax is taken in most democratic states today. Just for the sake of taking it, because you're earning it, because you have it, because you want to do these things, that's how tax is taken over here. The jizya of Dawood Islam is far, there's different opinions amongst us fuqaha how to levy and how much, but in any text that you see, it will be far lesser than the amount that is given over here. حَتَّى يُعْطُوا الْجِزْيَةَ عَنْ يَدٍ وَهُمْ صَاغِرُونَ, that this is a method of showing the superiority of Islam and kalimat la ilaha illallah in Darul Islam. This is very important to understand, that any state is, the laws of a state are based off of the objectives of that state. Any laws that are instituted in a state is based off the objectives and goals that that state has been established for. Why is it Dawud al-Islam established? It's not established for this idea of, or acclaimed ideas of liberty, acclaimed understandings of what freedom means, etc., etc. A Dawud al-Islam is established for Islam, nothing else. Okay? Dawud al-Islam is established for the sake of Islam. That the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul, as they ordained, as it ought to be practiced amongst people, that should be uplifted, and that should be established. الذين مكناهم في الأرض أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأمروا بالمعروف ونهوا عن المنكر. The manifesto of any democratic state is not إقامة الصلاة. In fact, it's separation of church and state. Okay? The manifesto of Dawud Islam at the highest level, إقامة الصلاة. That's part of our political understanding. Okay? We don't separate between church and state. We don't have a church, we have a masjid. But we don't separate between masjid and state, if you want to call it. Iqamat al-salah is at the top of the line when it comes to establishing a Muslim state. Aqam al-salah. Atawu zakah. Zakah is there as well. So all your ibadat badaniyah, all your physical ibadat, that must be established. The state takes not just an interest in it, but actively makes sure that that is established. Okay? Whatever ibadat that have to do with your money, financial, monetary, the state actively takes a role in ensuring that these ibadat are also done. Why? Because the reason why Dawud Islam is established is Islam. So what else are you going to do? If a democratic state is established for the for the reason of financial growth and for the reasons of liberty and freedom, so then the laws will also push that agenda. The laws will push the agenda of liberty, of acclaimed understandings of it, of freedom, whatever understanding they have of that. But because Dawud al-Islam is established, lil-Islam, so that will be the same thing. Amaru bil-ma'ruf. So now you have an established form of Amr bil-ma'ruf in Dawud al-Islam as well. You have an established form of Nahi al-Munkar. All these hadith you see, then Umar would check who's coming for Fajr, what's happening. All this is what? Someone in today's understanding, they, well, why are you meddling in my problems? So why does the government care about this? There's a difference. The difference is that here, where Islam is not what you breathe, Islam is not the objective of the government, Islam is not the objective of the state, then they won't care about Islam. And like that, any other religion. Because the objective is, how can we make the most of our world over here? How can we make sure that we earn the most amount of money and live life to the fullest, all of these slogans? So then the laws and what is pushed, those agendas will also be pushed. Okay? So when we read these laws and ahkam, because many and most either live here for a long time or born and raised here, you have to learn how to rewire your mind. Rewire your mind to think along the lines of what Islam and the Dawah Islam is supposed to be. When a person grows up and sees and breathes and experiences all day, then that takes over their mind. This is a reality. Okay? So when we look at these ayat and these ahkam and understand and see these laws, you have to look at it through the right lens. Okay? If you look at Dawah Islam through the lens of a democratic state, it doesn't make sense. And vice versa, it won't make sense as well. So you have to look at it through the right lens. حتى يعطوا الجزية عن يد وهم صاغرون. The idea of Dawah Islam is for إعلاء كلمة الله. No other objective. Nothing else is supposed to be established except the kalimah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that, there is protection and safety, etc. as well. There's aman, there's adala, there's justice. All of that is established under the umbrella of Islam. Under the umbrella of Islam. Let me dua that Allah ta'ala gives us to understand.